The first drum lesson that I wish I would have known a long time ago is everything we play as musicians or drummers has to be in the pocket. I talk all the time with my students in my online drum school about the big 7. Those are 7 big picture principles that we can focus on in every exercise. Timing, technique, groove, dynamics, articulation, melody, flow. These are 7 big picture principles that need to be in every exercise, in every drum fill, in every drum groove. We've got to be thinking about them. So when we're playing an exercise like this, not only does it need to be in time, it also needs to feel good. Even if it's just an exercise, if it's not feeling good, if it doesn't have some type of a groove, we need to keep working it. The place I see this the most with students is when they're playing a groove, everything is killing, and then they go for a drum fill. The drum fill is in time, but it does not feel good. When we play a drum fill, we want it to feel in the pocket. The next thing I wish I would have learned when I first started playing, and I try to teach this all the time, I have a course called The Art of Practice. I teach this in that course. It's not about the quantity of practice. It's about the quality of practice. When we become drummers, they now tell us we need to do this other thing. We need to practice, but we don't really know how to practice. Nobody's really told us how to practice. We're just supposed to practice the drums. So we have 2 things we're doing. We're drumming, but we're also practicing, and this is a skill that we can work on. How we practice has everything to do with how much we get done in our practice time. You don't have to practice 8 hours a day. You can see incredible progress with 20, 30 minutes a day. Some of you are like, Steven, you gotta practice more than that. Sure, if you want to, but I'm telling you, I have students that make incredible progress with only 20 or 30 minutes a day of solid, focused, intentional practice. You don't get a gold star because you practiced more than someone else.
That poster charts everyone's performance. We get gold stars when we master the material covered in class.
What kind of a sick school is this?
This next one I felt guilt about for many years. I started gigging at a very early age. My first paid gig was when I was 15. I started playing in front of people 2 weeks after I got my drum set. I was playing 3 times a week at church. That meant I had to learn a ton of music. And for some reason, I separated practicing music from actually practicing. I didn't think that actually learning songs, working through those was actual practice. I thought, oh, that's something else. We have to have a healthy balance in our practice time, but the music should be pointing us towards what we need to work on. Oh, I had this thing in this song. I was having trouble doing it. Let me work on that in my practice time. Then we get some exercises around that. But make no doubt about it, the gig takes precedence over everything. I don't care if you're playing at a retirement home. I don't care if you're playing at your local church. I don't care if it's a free gig, a paid gig. You're playing in front of 20,000 people. You have to learn the music, and that is practice. You don't have to feel bad about spending an hour learning songs. You have practiced. Use the music to inform what you need to be working on in your exercise time. This next one is huge for so many people. The song is more important than your ego. What does that mean? That means that you need to play parts that support the song. Not only that, we need to not overplay in areas that don't need to be overplayed in. We don't need to underplay in areas that don't need to be underplayed in. We need to understand where the energy in the song is going. Are you stepping on the lyrics? Can you hear the vocalist? What is happening in the song besides what you are doing? The song is of the utmost importance. If you're playing country music, chances are they're telling a story, because that's what that song form is all about, storytelling. If you're playing in a metal band, you probably have a little bit more room to branch out, but only in certain areas. If you're playing in a jazz setting, guess what? You still have a song form that you need to respect, and you need to keep the song form. If they give you a solo, don't be the drummer who goes off the grid and all of a sudden the band's like, where are we? You need to know where you are in the song. The song is everything. This next one kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. And playing a lot of notes or playing a few notes is irrelevant. Playing the right notes at the right time is key. I don't want to get into the trenches and argue about should you be busy player, should you not be a busy player, should you play pocket all the time, should you play field? Yes, all of it. We have to hone our musical intuition so that we know when a lot of notes are called for and we can play those, and we know when a lot of notes are not called for and we can play that. It's not either or. Listen to Vinnie Colaiuta, listen to Mark Giuliana, listen to Jojo Mayer, listen to any of your favorite drummers. The thing you will notice is they know when to step out and they know when to reel it in, and that's why they keep working. If you want a setting where you're able to play all the notes all the time, That's great. Make a band around that concept. There's several bands I could point you to that are built around that concept and that drumming style. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to read the room. We have to understand when that's called for. And when it's not called for, don't go whining. Play music. This next one, my college professor taught me in a lesson. When I was in college, I had to also learn the vibraphone, so I'm learning scales, learning how to solo, and it really relates to the drum set too. And I was soloing in this section and trying to kind of go through the chords and and I played a wrong note, and I stopped and I said, I'm sorry, I played a wrong note. And he said something that's always stuck with me, Dr. John Wooten. He said, there are no wrong notes, there's only wrong resolutions. Let that sink in for a second.
You let that sink in.
And he said, the note you play could be wrong or it could be right. It depends on what the next note you play is. He said, we can make any wrong note right if we resolve it correctly. And then he proceeded to pick up the mallets and play the exact same song I was playing and play a lot of wrong notes, but resolve them in a way that they were not wrong. They were just a tension-filled moment, a passing tone. Herbie Hancock was talking about this in a recording I heard. Actually, I'm just gonna play that for you because it's really informative.
In the middle of one of the songs during Miles' solo, I played this chord that was so wrong. I thought I had just destroyed everything and reduced that great night to rubble. Miles took a breath and he played some notes and he made my chord right. And I could not figure out how he did that. It sounded like magic, you know? It took me years to figure out what actually happened. I judged what I had played. Miles didn't. Miles just accepted it as something new that happened. And he did what any jazz musician should always try to do, and that is try to make anything that happens into something of value.
This next one, again, goes hand in hand with that one. My favorite players make mistakes all of the time. What makes them world class is that you can't hear the mistake because they are experts at the recovery. I tell my students this all the time. Whenever we have our drum camps here, we actually have registration open for those. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. They will sell out, so please, if you want to come, I'd love to meet you and hang out with you for a week, but definitely get your name in there. They're a ton of fun. I tell them all the time, we have a Friday night recording session. I say, look, when you make a mistake, we watch the video back, I say, look at your face. The only reason we knew you made a mistake was because you're like, you know, you made this, you're playing. You make this face. What that does is it draws everyone's attention to you just made a mistake. This is recovery 101 whenever it comes to playing music. Try to keep your game face on. Even if you're freaking out in your head, that's the first step. The second step is to keep the awareness in the moment and try to figure out how to resolve the mistake. Remember, we were just talking about there's no wrong notes, only wrong resolutions. If you make a mistake, we have to figure out how to make it a part of the song or how to resolve out of that mistake and cover for it. Another one of my college professors told me one time, he said, look, if you make a mistake, make it again, then it's a part of the song. Become an expert at covering up your mistakes and understanding how to resolve so that they are not mistakes, they were just a different moment in the song. This next one was really important. I spend a ton of time talking to my students about it, and that is the mental side of drumming is everything. If you get beat on the mental side, your practice time is beat, your gigs are beat, everything is beat. What does that mean? We can't judge everything all the time, good or bad, and then let our self-worth hang on that. What we have to do is we have to understand our purpose for drumming. Once we understand our purpose, then we have to get information and material that will get us to that purpose and our goals. We have to set those goals. And then we just show up every day and methodically work towards those goals. I could give you a lot of books, but there's a great book called Grit. And one of the things they found was these experts that seemed like they could perform superhuman feats. What they were doing was just showing up every day and doing the next most logical thing. The thing that was so special about them was grit. They wouldn't quit. They were showing up, pushing themselves every day, making small steps. And over 10 years, no one day looked like anything special. But when you combined them, what looked like a superhuman event, them being able to win a gold medal or play on the level that they're playing at, what looked like a superhuman feat, you could actually just break it down into day by day doing the next logical thing. Your practice time doesn't have to be an emotional time. It's just something you do. This next one derailed me so many times. It was a huge player in my early career, and the quality of my day does not depend on how well I feel like I'm playing or how well I feel like I played the evening before, whatever that is. I mean, I remember one week I stopped eating because it was right before my senior recital. I'd worked for a whole semester and I couldn't get my snare drum in tune. You know what the problem was? I had gotten a bad head. It was warped. Replaced the head, everything was fine. I let my entire week be ruined. I had attached my self-worth and how good my week or my day was going to be to how I was feeling about my performance on this instrument. Don't do that. With this next one, some of you are gonna be like, Steven, I don't agree with you, and that's totally fine. But I want you to know, I wish I'd have known this a long time ago. It's okay to ignore your weaknesses and focus on your strengths in your drumming. So what does that mean? Let's take myself, for instance. I've never had a gig that has required me to play double bass. Do I like double bass? Yeah, I think it's great. Would I play it? Absolutely. If I had the opportunity to play a gig, could I work it up? I think I could in a very reasonable amount of time. Have I dabbled with the double bass? Yes. Do I play the double bass regularly? No. Do I feel like that is a weakness in my playing? Absolutely. Am I okay with that? Yes. Because I know at any time I could decide for that not to be a weakness. I could decide to focus on that and shore it up so that it becomes a strength. But for right now, for what I'm doing, for what I need to do, it is not something I need to do. I would get better results by understanding what my strengths are and focusing on those strengths. Your favorite players are not good at everything unless they're like a Vinny Colaiuta, then they're great at everything. But most players have some pretty narrow lanes that they swim in. If you call a session player in Nashville, if it is not in their lane, many times they will say, hey, let me refer you to this person. I want to get you to the right person for this. They understand their strengths, they know where their weaknesses are, and they're cool with avoiding those. When do we not avoid weaknesses? Okay, we don't avoid weaknesses whenever they're all the time showing up in our playing. Remember, double bass for me, I don't get the opportunity to play it that much. It's fun for me to mess around with, and if I had a gig come up, sure, I'll work on it. But it's not something I put into my playing all the time. Double stroke rolls, I play them pretty often. If I find my double stroke rolls suck, I probably need to work on them. That's an example of a weakness that is a true weakness, and we need to get it up to a comparable level. I get this from a lot of students. They're like, I don't want to play jazz. And so I say, don't play jazz. It's okay to decide I'm not a jazz player. Now, what I do tell them is there are advantages to working on jazz because there are some nuances and things that can pass over to your other playing if we can work through that jazz idiom. But if you don't want to practice jazz, then don't. It's okay to say I'm a metal drummer, I'm a post-punk drummer, I'm a country drummer. It's okay to say that. What's not okay is to know we have a weakness that is constantly coming up in our playing and we're just like, oh, I'm okay with my strengths. Well, no, if it's constantly coming up in your playing and it's an issue, you should work on it. Is your timing bad? Guess what? That's one of what I call the big seven. You need to work on it. Is your pocket in question? We need to work on it. Do you just not really want to be a jazz drummer? That's great. I've got some jazz drummers that don't want to be a metal drummer. That's cool too. Be able to identify your weaknesses, identify your strengths, be okay with leaving some of those weaknesses, understanding which weaknesses need to be worked on and shored up to be more of your strengths, and understand where your strengths lie so that you can spend more time working on those strengths than you do on some of these weaknesses that really aren't going to show up in your playing. While we're talking through this stuff, I've also got a free resource for you. It's linked in the video description. It's my free video series, Building a Drum Fill Vocabulary. I've had tens of thousands of drummers go through it. It is a proven method for helping to build yourself a drum fill vocabulary, and it's free. Just follow that link in the description.